Hi, Stuart Bruce here, and I am the Spare Time Property Investor. In these podcasts, I'm going to share tips, tricks, and lessons that I've learned and will hopefully help you, especially if you're still working the 9 to 5. Hello and welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today I interviewed Nathan from Porter's Investment. He's got loads and loads of experience, but he's quite new to property investment. However, you wouldn't know that from looking at the pictures he's been sharing on Instagram. He's a really top guy, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for joining me. We have Nathan from Porter's Investment today. He's also known as the Proptimist on Instagram. So to start off with, if you could tell me a little bit about your day job. I understand you're a facilities manager for quite a large company. You manage quite a large commercial property portfolio, so I'm sure that's really challenging. So if you could just talk a little bit about that and what your kind of average week looks like.
Yeah, hi Stuart, first of all, thanks for having me on, pleasure to be here, podcast debut and all that. Yes, so the day job, I'm a facilities manager, so I work in commercial property for quite a large, one of the sort of the big 5 building surveying companies in the world. I manage a commercial portfolio of about 25 to 30 properties at the moment, so that could be a big mix. We could have brand new, nice, big, shiny retail parks with the likes of, B&Q on and places like that. Then at the other end of the spectrum, there'd be battered old industrial estates, and then there might be grade A office blocks that have got their own builder managers and stuff like that. So a real mix of properties that we manage there. My day job in those property management is mainly with the operations, so making sure the maintenance is done, the contracts are in place, we've got the mechanical and electrical things are getting looked after, making sure the property is compliant for our clients. So a lot of our clients are big commercial portfolio companies, insurance companies, people like that, and the main thing they want is compliance to their properties. So we make sure they're all compliant and everything's operating as it should on the ground.
Because, I suppose for those big companies, they don't want any kind of risk of any litigation or any challenges for them in terms of their ownership of the properties? Or is it just because they want it to tick along nicely and keep on sending not a nice return for them? Or what is their kind of big concern, I suppose? That's my question.
Well, both. From an asset management perspective, we're trying to maximise profit for the landlords while making sure we've got minimal amount of voids and any vacant units let out straight away and things like that. But risk is a big one, particularly for the bigger companies, because you find that they're a little bit more detached from the actual asset. It's not like if you've got a local landlord who knows the property well. You might have these multinational pension funds, for example. They're quite detached from the actual asset, and so they'll pay the managing agents to look after them and cover them and make sure that the risk is minimised for them.
Okay, cool. So you said about filling the units and stuff as well, and one of the examples you gave was a retail park. So is that more challenging in terms of filling those units as the kind of retail environment is, ever changing with everything going on online and Amazon kind of taking up such a huge part of the market now and stuff for retail?
Yeah, I don't work in the agency side, so it's not something I directly get involved in, but the commercial landscape is definitely changing at the moment, as we all know, the high street, and I think there's trends we're seeing at the moment across the world, and China and Japan and places like that, where big sort of shopping centres and high streets are being completely repurposed as leisure and completely different industries as the likes of Amazon takes over and retail's sort of hypothetically dying, or at least the physical presence of retail on high street. Then people and landlords and property owners are having to get a bit more creative. So you might see more leisure schemes, more co-working spaces in what would formerly be maybe a Debenhams shop or something like that. People are getting a bit more creative with it.
I think it's really interesting because there's a big retail park that's just been created near to us, and one of the biggest units there is Crazy Golf. It's nuts. You'd never have seen that a few years ago. But it's this huge unit. It's about 3 or 4 different routes of crazy golf. And like you say, it's this kind of experience, this entertainment element to it more than having Debenhams and M&S and everything.
Yeah, I think that leisure aspect's key, because I was thinking about this the other day. What is, as there's all these new retailers announcing that they're going under, or they're shutting the units. Forever 21 is one of them. There's been a few lately. It makes me think, what's the city centre going to be made up of in 10 years' time? Now, don't get me wrong, there'll always be Phoenix companies, and there'll be companies that will, as one company goes under, another one might come out, or maybe we'll see more smaller independent companies, which will be brilliant. I mean, ultimately, no one knows, but it's interesting to think, what will city centres look like? What will attract us as individuals to go into the city centre if it's not shopping?
Yeah, I could really see, obviously, a lot more residential in city centres, but I could almost see something like, like the old-fashioned department store where you go from one, brand to another to buy. I can almost see a department store, so you could just go and touch and feel and see what that product is like, and then you just order it online anyway. But then maybe the different brands would pay to have a presence in something like that, just so people could have a practical kind of look at the product to see what it's like. I could maybe see something like it at some point, as well as the leisure and everything.
It's definitely nice to see and feel things before you buy them. My missus will buy about 5 different tops and then just send 4 of them back. But I'd rather not have the hassle of that. I'd rather just be able to see them and feel them, and then buy one that I want.
Yeah, I'm not so good at that. That's cool. So then, see, you've got this really busy job. It sounds, really full on, and lots of moving parts to it. So how do you manage to fit in the property investment around
that? So I work from home, which is probably an important factor. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to working from home. Obviously, I don't have a commute in the morning.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of extra time there. I used to travel to Manchester from Liverpool every day. So that was, nearly 3 hours a day travelling in rush hour, that I've now got back to myself. I also have a lot more flexibility. Sometimes I might start work at 6:30, 7 in the morning, do a couple hours, and then I could maybe go and do a viewing in the daytime.
Yeah.
As long as I catch up, no one's on my back, so to speak. It's just like, you kind of treat it as, you're all adults, manage your own diary, do what you've got to do. It's very much output based.
I was just going to say,
as long as you produce the output that you're meant to produce, you're granted that flexibility. But there's cons to that as well, because as good as it is working from home, don't get me wrong, I'm working a very demanding, very busy job, and you can blur the lines between work and home sometimes, because if I've got a lot to do, and I've got 50 odd, 100 odd unread emails and people chasing me on X, Y, and Z, I'm going to find it really difficult to turn my laptop off at 5, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, you do find yourself working till late at night, but it swings and roundabouts. There's pros and cons to it. So with the property investing, I just try and allocate specific times to doing specific things. So, viewings will always try and be on the weekend. Assessing deals and stacking deals will tend to be, I'll allocate a couple of hours in the morning each week to reviewing all new listings on Rightmoves, and then just trying to condense it and really compartment my diary.
So blocking out those times so you can really get into a bit of a rhythm when you're stacking the deals as well, because it's difficult going from one thing to the next, isn't it? And like really switching gear and everything. So if you can,
it's easier said than done as well. When you do allocate time to do a specific thing, but then you've got emails pinging up and your phone's ringing and stuff like that. It is difficult to separate the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, as we said before we come on, I've just seen I just saw the video that you put up a couple of weeks ago on Instagram, where you were going around the site of the one you're working on, and there's a picture of the dormer. It's been newly tiled and everything like that. So that project, if you could talk us through it and how coronavirus has affected how that's been kind of progressing, really.
Yeah, so that's a 6-bed HMO in Liverpool 7, which is it's actually just been announced as one of the best buy-to-let areas in the UK. That specific postcode,
Oh wow, cool.
not just Liverpool, but that postcode L7. So yeah, it's a 6-bed all-en-suite HMO. It's our first deal, and it's what I'm doing as a joint venture with an investor. Coronavirus has affected us. The guys have still been working on site when they can and when they can do so safely at a distance while still having social distancing. It has slowed us down. Some contractors, I believe, weren't able to come to work at times, so it slowed us down a little bit. There's been some shortage of materials, delay on getting a staircase. I think everyone in the country was struggling to get multi-finish plaster at a time. So we've stockpiled a load of multi-finish plaster. So yeah, I'd say all in all, it's probably added about 3 weeks onto the project programme.
Okay, that's not too bad, really, considering. You know, when you're thinking about an international,
it's not too bad.
Yeah, an international pandemic, and it's adding 3 weeks to the project. I mean, that's all right, really. Yeah.
Exactly. I really can't complain. You know, in the grand scheme of what's going on in the world, my problems seem minuscule, and so that's why I try not to really even raise it or speak to people about it, because it's so insignificant compared to what else is happening in the world at the moment.
It's great. It's progressing though. It's really good, and it looks great on. Looks like a really good project on Instagram. So yeah, fingers crossed it'll all get done and dusted soon. When do you think you'll?
It looks like a good project in real life as well, and not just on Instagram.
I
mean, Instagram's great for that because there's so many people creating a good product at the moment, and it's good to see where the bar is and what the target is. You know, there's a lot of people creating sort of cookie cutter HMOs as well.
Yeah.
And then there's the other people who are creating these absolutely amazingly well designed HMOs. So it's kind of made me realise that you need to put the effort into the design and small design decisions. And we're probably not quite there yet in terms of making some of those decisions, because we're still at sort of just at the end of first fix stage.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the stuff you see on Instagram's kind of made me realise where the bar is and how much effort you do need to put into designing the property.
Yeah.
As you know.
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna really go for it again on the next one. I think we're gonna try even more. Yeah, because the last one we did was a bit of a tester in terms of the design, so how it works. So we're really gonna go. For it.
Are we gonna have some nice gold leaf in there somewhere?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife just told me last night she spent 50 quid on gold leaf just for our our bedroom. So yeah, it would definitely be gold leaf everywhere.
It looks amazing. That last one that you guys have done was impressive, very impressive.
Cheers. Yeah. I mean,
it's the details, isn't it? You know, it's the small details. It's not about spending loads of money on X, Y, and Z and having the best furniture in the world. You could paint a feature on the wall, which might cost exactly the same amount of money as not painting the feature, and that could be the real selling point of the whole room.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's one of those things as well. When you think about how people look for properties now, it's all on Spare Room, Rightmove, Zoopla, and everything like that. So if they're all identical, how on earth is somebody going to kind of pick one out? You know, so I think having that a little added kind of something, you know, a little bit of a design feature just makes them come and view your property. And maybe that's enough for them to, you know, how to start renting from you and stuff like that. I think as well, it's like you're saying, you can see the bar. If everybody else is kind of reaching up to that level, and you don't, what happens when the market becomes saturated? That people won't be going to yours because that you haven't kind of tried to get closer to that design bar. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, exactly, and particularly in Liverpool at the moment, every man and his dog is trying to invest in Liverpool. So if you're not creating a good product, you're not going to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really that simple. You've got to create a good product if you want people to buy it in a competitive market.
And it's a really cool city as well. So it's, you know, I think it deserves like that you know, attention to design and stuff like that. I think it's a nice place.
There's lots going on in Liverpool culturally, and you know, in in terms of culture and arts and, massive student population.
Yeah.
Loads of regeneration happening and has been happening for the past sort of since 2007, 2008. But yeah, it's a good time. It's cities like Manchester have already seen a lot of the growth, whereas Liverpool's kind of a little bit behind that growth spurt, and then it's still got rings around the city centre and then rippling out from that where there's real room for regeneration.
That's great. Yeah, cool. So what first sparked your interest in property investment?
I mean, I've always been really entrepreneurial from a very young age. As a kid in school, when I was sort of 13, 14 years old, I was like the wheeler dealer selling SIM cards and chocolate bars, and I'd go to the market on the weekend and get all these Kit Kats that are past the sell-by date and that, and then I'm spinning them in school. I'd get these O2 SIM cards off the internet and I'd be selling them for £10 each. And
we used to do that.
I've literally always been that way.
Me and my now wife used to do that. We used to get the free SIM cards off online and sell them on and stuff. Yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. I was the same. I've just always had that in my mind. It's always been, there's an opportunity, or if I do that and then sell it for that, I can make money. So that's kind of been part of me thinking from a very young age. But at the same time, the other sort of pillar is that I've always been really fascinated by buildings, and from a young age I always wanted to be an architect. As I got older, I kind of realized that I didn't want to go to uni for 7 years to do something that might not necessarily pay off, and so I ended up going into construction management instead. But buildings, the way they work, the way people use them, the way people interact with buildings, how they look, the design of them, is always something that I've been fascinated in. So if you take those two pillars of being really entrepreneurial and being basically a big building nerd from a young age, that kind of sowed the seeds for later in life. So if you fast forward to maybe around 2018, so a couple of years ago, I was a bit fed up in my day job at the time. And I remember watching YouTube, and I was watching this guy talk about property development. And he was like this young Scouse lad. He was probably a couple of years younger than me, from Liverpool, went to the same university as me. And he's standing there on YouTube with a big flip chart talking about momentum investing and how to do momentum investing. And that's when it just clicked. Like, is this young Scouse kid who's went to the same uni as me, who's probably a couple of years younger than me, and he's doing it, and he's got a portfolio of 200 properties or whatever it is. And that's when, in my head, I always thought property development and investing is possible, but you've got to build slowly, you've got to earn the money, build equity. I think I didn't realize what could be done in terms of using momentum and using investors and things like that. So then that sort of sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole then of thinking, who's this kid? Where's he from? What does he do? And ended up being led to Inside Property Investing podcast episode that he'd done. And then, as you probably know, once you listen to one of them, and then you're into the next one and the next one, and I was probably doing a good couple hours a day of their podcasts before I was just fully immersed into it. And
really good.
Yeah,
really
that
good
just really resonated with me.
Yeah. So that kind of sparked you kind of realised actually there's a different way of investing, and kind of you didn't need to have such a long period of time to build up a portfolio. So then from there, did you do any training or mentorship or anything?
On the training side, so I mean, obviously I've got a degree in construction management, and I've worked in project management, managed some big sort of 700 grand projects myself single-handedly, and done property management as well for many years. So I had that background anyway, and I'm kind of, the way I am, I'll really sponge up information. I'll read everything there is to read about the subject, and so I didn't really feel the need to do a formal property course, because I felt like I could kind of go and do a lot of it myself.
You had a lot of the skills anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and as well as the skills, though, I had the ability to just be a bit of a nerd for a few. Every night after work, I'd read everything there was about a particular subject. I mean, the courses work for some people, and they're right for some people, but I think everyone has different ways of learning, don't they? If you look at people's psychology and how their brain works, everyone has different ways of absorbing information, and so the property courses I decided not to do, but YouTube, podcasts, books, I've learned a lot from. I had a mentor last year for a period, and I've got a mentor at the moment, and I think that's an important thing as well, to have someone for accountability to keep pushing you and driving you forward.
I think that accountability is really key. But I think going back to the point about the podcasts and YouTube and stuff like that, I don't think there's ever been, I mean, obviously, there's never been a time where there's so much information available to people wherever they are. You can get on the internet, order books, you can listen to podcasts, you can watch videos and stuff like that. And I often wonder how much additional information is actually there in the room when you go to training courses. I mean,
yeah, I think the answer is none.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can get a benefit from having the people around you, and I'm sure you can have people around the table and you'll make great connections with them. And there's definitely benefits.
Yeah.
But are you being taught anything that you couldn't learn on your own? Questionable.
Yeah, I think it's two things that people always say about it. It's the it's like how much quicker it is because it's all there presented to you.
It's condensed for you. Yeah, there's definitely a benefit to that.
And then secondly, people make really good connections and stuff like that. So I haven't done any kind of property training either. I've done a lot of reading like yourself, a lot of YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. But then the flip side of it is, there is the kind of the potential benefit of all being condensed and the network and stuff like that. But yeah, that's interesting. So then you've got.
I think if it works for you and if it works for your educational style, then fine.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not criticising training courses or people who do them, because it does work for some people.
Definitely. So you're saying you had a mentor last year and then you've got a mentor now at the moment, and a large factor in that is the accountability. So I mean, how's that working for you at the moment with the current mentor you've got?
Yeah, it's working really well. I mean, I find that I need that accountability, and I work much. You can't make excuses for yourself. It's all well and good saying by the end of this year, I'm going to have achieved this. But unless you've got when you've got someone week on week saying, have you done this yet? Have you done that? Or they might say, you said you were going to do this, this and this, and you haven't done it. What's going on?
Yeah.
That's massive for me, because, it's properties, it's a lonely game, and if you're in it on your own, it's easy to make excuses for yourself. And also if you've got a day job as well and you're very busy in work, it's easy to let things fall by the wayside. So I think I'm at a point now where I'm trying to push myself as hard as possibly can, almost to the point of burnout, where I'm working as much as I possibly can. I was married last year and I'm under pressure to have kids from my missus at the moment. So I know I've got this kind of time period of a few years now where it's crunch time, before I might have children and I might have a lot less spare time than I already have. I might have a lot less expendable income than I already have. So I've really got it very clear in my head at the moment that, it's crunch time now. Yeah. Every lunch break, every evening, every morning, get up early, just drink loads of coffee, and it's crunch time. So having the mentor is good, because it's, some people call it a mentor, some people call it a coach, but they're literally coaching you through this period. If you think of it like as in a sport, you're really training really hard to get better for this short period, and you've got a coach or a mentor who's really pushing you through.
No, it sounds great. And especially because you've got it in your head, you've got this window of opportunity, and it kind of, I'm sure it focuses the mind, kind of having that on the horizon. So you the property you're doing at the moment, that's an HMO. Is that the strategy you're going for? And how did you choose that strategy if it is HMOs?
Yeah, at the moment. So, I mean, in the early days, jumped around a little bit, as I'm sure everyone does, and was initially looking at rent to rent, and then I was off that and I was looking at some buy-to-lets, and I kind of realised where I am with my strategy and working with joint venture partners for the deals to for it to pay off as a joint venture. It needs to cash flow quite handsomely because the profit's going to be going two ways. And so if you're doing a buy-to-let that's making, I don't know, 300 quid a month, once you've split that two ways, it's kind of not really it's not really worth doing. Yeah. So I'm focusing on HMOs purely for the cash flow. It's a busy market in Liverpool, and the student market in particular is quite saturated. You've got to be good at what you do.
Yeah.
And I'm very conscious of that, and making sure I'm buying in the right place and at the right price, because you do get things that are inflated. But HMOs, I think I will be sticking with. I will like to diversify at some point in time, but my short-term goal is to replace my salary to be able to leave work, and this is the quickest way to do that. Once I'm out of work, I might say, right, okay, I want to diversify a little bit and mitigate some of the risk of what's happening in the market. I want maybe a solid buy-to-let, or I might want a city centre apartment that's going to give me loads of capital appreciation. But in the next 3 to 5 years, HMOs is definitely going to be the strategy for me.
Cool. And is that for the tenants then, is that students or professionals, or what are you going for?
It's professionals. Yeah. The market for student properties in Liverpool, it's very well served. Although there's a lot of sort of tired properties and landlords who don't really create a good product, there's quite a few very big players who've got, sizable portfolios who are creating a brilliant product. And room rates for the students reflect how the market is in terms of supply and demand. There's probably a bit less of a market for professional HMOs, and so my view there was to try and be a bigger fish in a smaller pond rather than the other way around.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
I think there's pros and cons to both, really, with the students' professional arguments. You could definitely go either way, and there's pros and cons to both.
Absolutely, that's interesting though, especially with the universities. The town nearest to us, the university's just built really quite nice student accommodation as well, and I think that's has to be one of the big risks. And I know people say that people might go into student accommodation for maybe the first year and then will kind of choose to go and live in a shared house from there on, but it still kind of puts additional pressure on the market.
Yeah. But I think people I wouldn't want to live in those sort of halls of residence type properties. Some people do, but the thing that concerns me about that is these companies don't go and spend 20 million quid on a development based on speculation.
No, of course
they know those rooms are going to be filled.
Yeah.
And so I think there'll always be demand for the private landlord sector and the houses, but perhaps the landscape is changing slightly. I don't know.
That's one of the things that kind of puts me off it myself, but cool. Okay. So next we've got what are your 3 top tips for investing around your day job?
3 top tips for investing around my day job. I've probably mentioned some of them already. One would be, if there's anyone who's sort of, I'm 30 at the moment, and if there's anyone who's sort of my age or a little bit younger and they're in a similar position to me, they haven't quite settled down with a family yet, then I'd tell them to really see this time as the opportunity to, just drink loads of coffee and use every hour of the day that you possibly can, and really view it as the time to put the graft in to make it happen. So I think that would be one tip I'd say. Another would be to manage your expectations around where you are in life. So on the other hand, in contrast to what I've just said, if you're someone who has a really, you might have a really busy day job, and you might have things going on in your personal life that take up a lot of your time, whether that's caring for people or family or whatever it might be, if you're then setting goals to be a multimillionaire within 2 years time, it might be unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so the goals you're setting yourself and the expectations and the pressure you're putting on yourself has got to be relative to your situation. And everyone's different. I can't turn around and say, here's what your goal needs to be, because only each person knows what they need to be targeting, but it's got to be relative to where you are, and it's got to be realistic.
I think that's I think that's a really good point, and I think one of the issues with that is that a lot of the property gurus you see on Instagram and Facebook and stuff will say you'll be a millionaire in 12 months time, or you'll have a portfolio of 5 by Christmas, which I've seen like more recently. You know what I mean? It does plant like this little seed in people's heads that it's possible that quickly. So
yeah, and even when it is possible, I had earlier on in this year, since working with my current mentor Andy, my goals were slightly different to what they are now, and I had cash flow targets of, by the end of this year, my cash flow will be X. By the end of next year, my cash flow will be Y. And he kind of wound me back a little bit and was just like, well, this isn't fully necessary. You don't need to put that much pressure on yourself, because you don't need to be making that much money. And
that's good.
My goals were skewed by wanting to replace my salary when really that wasn't the right thing to do.
Cool. And then any other top tips?
Yeah, last one would probably be to, again, on compatibility and where you are in life. So the last one being managing your expectations of where you are in life. This one would be to make sure that your job is compatible with your property goals. So kind of flipping the other one on its head. So if you've got, if you're where I am, where you're trying to transition out of the 9 to 5 and into the property world, some people aren't. I know some investors really love their day job and they want to stay in it. But if you are trying to transition, make sure you're working in a job that's suited to that transition. Because if you're trying to leave the 9 to 5 and become a full-time property investor over the course of 1, 2, or 3 years, if that 9 to 5 you're doing involves maybe 3 hours commute every day and you're really busy, maybe you want to try and get something that's a bit more flexible. Maybe you want to try and get something where you can work from home. Maybe you want to be in a job that's more relevant to property and you can then use as a stepping stone. You might go work in an estate agency if you could do that, or do some kind of construction work, and then at least you're getting some relevant experience. So I guess it'd be just to make sure that your job's compatible with where you want to go in property.
Yeah, no, I like that. I often think my day job has got nothing to do with property, and it does cross my mind sometimes. Maybe I should just go and work in an estate agent for a bit.
It doesn't have to though. I think as long as it's not restrictive, then it works.
No, it's a good point. Cool. Okay, have you got any favourite business or property books?
Business and property books, I've probably been through most of them. I know everyone tends to say the same ones, don't they? It's the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Slight Edge. I've been through all them, and they're all great, and they've all played a part in getting me to where I am today. The one I probably recommend to people would be one called Creativity, which is by someone called Osho. So it's more a philosophical book, and it talks about the need to respond creatively to challenges. So it's how most people's perception, if I talk to you about creativity, most people think music or art, but really we can all be creative in what we do in so many ways. You can do a deal in a creative way. You can have a conversation in a creative way. So if we respond to every situation only by the things we've learned in the past, then we're purely just being imitative of other people.
Yeah.
Whereas if we bring creativity to situations, that's when we really innovate and move forward, and we're creating new things and new ways of doing things, and that's how you move forward. So this book kind of touches on that, and creativity can be used in different parts of your life. So yeah, I
Okay.
think that'd be a good one for people to read.
That sounds. Who's the author again?
It's a guy called Osho, Osho.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Lovely.
He's like this philosophical guru guy. Speaks really slow.
Okay.
So maybe don't get the audio book.
Or put it on 2 times or something.
Yeah, double speed.
Cool. Okay. And then, have you got any tools that you use to keep on top of things? Any kind of software or anything?
Yeah, I've got no big secrets on this one. There's no secret software I'm using. That's going to help people out really. OneNote's probably a big one for me. So OneNote, just having all my different folders and meeting notes all sort of scheduled, and that's synced between my laptop, my iPad, and my phone. That's a big one for me. On the social media side, I use Canva for social media posts and Square Ready for sort of framing and editing them.
Okay.
On deal sourcing, I've used Land Insight in the past. That was really good. On direct mail campaigns, I'm currently using Stamp, which is STMP.
I've
So
heard of
Stamp
that.
basically enable you to send mass letters out to a data set. So I've got a data set of around 600 addresses, and I'm sending monthly letters to that whole data set. So you just basically give the website your data set, as well as the letter or the newsletter or whatever it is you want to send out, and they'll do the rest for you.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds really good. STAMP, did you say?
Yeah, double N.
N. Okay.
Double N, yeah.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I'm sure somebody said about that before. It rings a bell somewhere, and yeah, no, it does sound good actually.
And actually, if you use PS Engine for land sourcing, then PS Engine can actually link into Stamp. So you can find the property through PS Engine, automatically find the owner's details, and then click a button, and it'll send them a letter automatically.
And you said you had no kind of secret tools or anything like that. That sounds pretty good.
People do know about some of these, you know.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good. Cool. Okay. Have you had? Do you have any, apart from your mentor? Do you have any other people around you who kind of are integral to what you're doing? Any family support or any other people you work with regularly?
Yeah, so. I mean, I've got a few friends who, I've got a couple of mates who are doing property anyway, and are property investing, who were actually my friends before I started doing this anyway.
Oh yeah.
So they're always good to bounce ideas off. There's then a couple of people in the sort of property Instagram sphere, I guess, who I've ended up becoming friendly with. Some local who are in Liverpool and operating in Liverpool and I know that way. Some not local. But there's a good support network there, and you know everyone seems to be nice enough and helping each other out. So yeah, I guess that's the extent of my support network. I'm a bit of a lone wolf.
Yeah. I think like you said earlier, it is quite the industry is a bit like that, really, isn't it? You're off on your hard, and you get people in to do pieces of work, and then you carry on, kind of doing quite a solo thing, really. That's a lot of people's experience.
I'm exactly the same in my day job as well, because there's other versions of me around the country, but I don't see them. You know, we very rarely see my management or anything. You kind of it's just crack on, do your job, get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we've got 2 questions to finish up. So first off, if your employer said you're going to be made redundant in 6 months, what would you do?
6 months. I'd start
saving. Got 6 months to prepare.
I'd be cancelling some of my subscriptions to reduce my income. But no, 6 months. I mean, it's not a very long time. You know, you're not necessarily going to find a great deal and get it over the line in that time. So I think you've got to really be focusing on cash flow. So I'd be looking on what the minimum amount was that I could live on, and then aiming for that. You know, in that shorter time, you might be looking at a couple of rent-to-rents, or I'm doing some property management at the moment as well, and I've set up that company. So rather than doing the sort of softer, gradual, organic development of it that I'm doing at the moment, I'd probably be a bit more aggressive with it and actually launch the company properly and market it and try and actually put more effort into getting some clients.
That sounds good. So is that another kind of income stream you're developing then, the property management?
Yeah, absolutely. So I basically be on my current JV. I'll be doing the property management through my own company.
Yeah.
And then aiming to get a few more management instructions this year. But as I said, I want that to be something that's slow and organic, and I want it to build. And I never want to do something that I'm not good at. And obviously, in my day job, I do property management anyway, so I know I can do it, even though I do it in commercial world. But I don't want to aggressively launch something and try and grow it into a monster.
Yeah.
I want to do it with the training wheels on, become good at it, learn the ropes and just build it organically from there.
But if you had 6 months, you'd go in heavy and like get some.
Yeah. Oh, if I had 6 months, there'd be sponsored ads, all that. Works.
Cool. And then the last question is: if you could speak to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give them?
Oh, stop going out and partying so much. No, if I was speaking to my 18-year-old self, in all honesty, I probably wouldn't have gone to uni.
Okay.
I've done well off the back of it, and I did well in uni, and I've got good jobs following on from that, and I've learned a lot, and I've got a really good technical knowledge from there. But I haven't got any regrets in that respect. But if I could go back and start doing property and doing what I'm doing now when I was 18 years old, where would I be now? I imagine a lot further on.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a myth in modern society, and I think younger people, when they're sort of 16, 17 years old, are kind of pushed into, go to uni, come out of uni, get a job, wear a suit, wear a tie, climb the ladder.
Yeah.
That's kind of what everyone's pushed to do. And I think as younger people, there should be areas of business people should be pushed into business opportunities a bit more and into entrepreneurialism, because I know so many people who will, although I've done all right off the back of it, I know so many people who will go to uni and come out of it with a degree they don't really want.
Yeah.
It's not relevant to what they want to do. They've ended up wasting $9,000 or however much it is they now owe to the student loan, and they're no better off for it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would have just skipped uni and started property earlier.
Yeah. It sounds good. Yeah, I think there's there is something about the whole kind of fixed route through, which I really don't like. School, uni. No. It just seems so. I think for society it makes sense because you need those employees and stuff like that. But for individuals, no.
Yeah, people need to take their time, man. I mean, when you're 17 years old and you're having to decide what you want to do in uni, how does a 17-year-old kid know what they want to
Absolutely.
do? Like, they might have a rough idea, but if they end up being pressured into a decision and they go and study something, they're literally wasting thousands of pounds, 3 years of their life. I always encourage people, I'm not saying don't go to university. I'm just saying maybe take some more time, maybe wait until you're 19, 20, 21 before you make that decision. Enjoy yourself a little bit and have a bit more of a feel for what you want to do before you make that decision of going to uni.
Absolutely. No, it's a really good answer. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it really. So, thanks for coming on to the podcast. I'd love to see how you get on over the next few months. So maybe we could check in like a year's time to see how that first project's gone and what you're on to next and stuff. So that'd be really cool. So if other people want to see what you're up to and get in touch, what's the easiest way for them to find you?
Instagram's probably the best place for me. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on there somewhere. I don't really use it, but @Proptimist on Instagram is the best place to get me.
Cool, lovely. Great then. So that's fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on to the podcast and sharing what you've been up to so far. And like I say, we'll check in again in a few months' time if that's okay with you. And for now, thank you very much for coming on.
Brilliant. Cheers, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. That was my interview with Nathan from Porter's Investment. I think you can agree that this is another great example of somebody who is managing to invest in property around a very challenging career. So this week I'm not going to share a tip or piece of software. Instead, I want to encourage you to contact me. If you invest in property around your day job and you want to appear on this podcast, please get in touch. Just go to my Instagram page, which is linked in the description, and send me a direct message. I really want to hear from as many people as possible who are investing in property and have a variety of different jobs or careers or run other businesses. Because I believe that if people hear other people in the same position as them doing amazing things, it gives them the confidence to carry on when things get really difficult, and they do get difficult. So I want people to think to themselves, if somebody else can do it, why not them? So if you're in that position, please send me a message and we can all help inspire each other. So that's it. That's the end of the episode. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please leave me a 5-star review to help other people find it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.